Hi, my name is Ted Burmis, and this is part 2 of a two-part video series on lightweight bike packing. If you haven't seen part 1, please hit the link below. This video is not sponsored by anybody. All the stuff that I'm going to talk about, including the bicycle and the bags, everything I purchased with my own money, and if I'm using it, I recommend it. In part 1, we talked about the decision to use frame bags versus panniers, as well as many other topics. Today we will finish off the rig, going into detail about my recommendations for different bags, attachment approaches, and multiple other tips. So with that, let's get started where we left off. Here is the seat bag that I ended up going with. It's from a company called Rock Bros. It has several features that I really like, the most important of which is the design of the interface between the bag and the seat post. It's very firm. It's got a metal brace inside of it, and it's shaped as a triangle, which I found the hard way is very important. Before I tried that particular bag, I tried a couple that I found as I packed stuff in them, they would tend to bulge towards the interface between the seat post and the bag. And that had the unfortunate effect of causing rubbing between the bag and my leg as I was riding, either doing a stand-up ride off the seat or simply just sitting down and riding, and that really was unacceptable to me. I wanted to make sure that the bike was as unaffected as possible in its handling and the ride quality when I had the bike packing gear on it. So that particular bag helped a lot. Now, I mentioned that I was surprised at how much you could fit in these bags. The frame bag that I showed you, while it maximized the main triangle of my bicycle, and my bicycle's not that big. I have a 52, which is on the smaller side. A lot of bicycles, companies that do small, medium, large, that would be considered small. So that's not a very big main triangle. And as I said, the frame bag that I had is 6 liters. Well, that particular seat bag that I just showed you, that's 14 liters, more than double what the frame bag can hold. So you can actually put a lot of stuff in the seat bag. And here's a tip that I learned from one of the many great bicycle forums out there. There are these straps. This particular one they're called Volet straps. It's the company that makes them. They're really great. They're very sturdy. They have some flex to them. The way they work is you cinch them in this fashion and the tension holds it together. So these are fantastic for bike packing because you can lash stuff onto your bicycle and get it on and off very quickly. The pro tip I have with these, not only getting these, is for the seat bag. It is very important that the seat bag that you have doesn't wag as you are riding, because if you put a lot of weight on the bag, especially as it goes further away from the seat, as you start, for example, if you were out of the saddle and moving the handlebars back and forth, you are going to cause that seat bag to wag. These straps, I'll show in one of the pictures I have, help to alleviate that. Also, if you have a good seat bag design, they will have ways to mitigate that wagging. Here's another pro tip for you. You don't want to put too much weight into the seat bag. You can put a lot of stuff in there, but I recommend lighter things like clothing and parts of the tent that aren't that heavy, like the fabric part of the tent you can put in there. Another pro tip is if you put so much stuff in there, you can get the seat bag to droop and potentially hit the back wheel. I ran into that problem. And the solution I found was to separate the tent components and put the tent poles at the bottom of the seat bag to give it some rigidity and firm it up so it wouldn't droop onto the seat. Which leads me to another point I've learned in this multi-month trial and error of building up my bike rig. I found that it's better to have two smaller things than one large thing when it comes to bike packing. And let me explain that. Let's say you have a warm blanket and it's quite thick. I would tell you for lightweight bike packing, you'll be better off to have two smaller blankets that are half as thick than one large blanket that's twice as thick. Because one thing that you will appreciate as you start trying to fit stuff into your rig is the more options you have to separate stuff, the easier it will be for you to put some stuff in your seat bag, some stuff in your frame bag, some stuff in other bags that you might have. Another area that is great for holding stuff is the top tube. I tried a couple different top tube bags. I ended up with another one from Rock Bros, pretty well made. Some things to look out for. You want it to be easily accessed as you're riding if you want to be able to grab snacks, because the top tube bag is often a great place to put things that you want to grab while you're riding. And if you can get it waterproof, that's nice, not required. One thing to watch out for with the top tube bag, and the frame bag for that matter, is that they have the ability to move the straps. For example, let's say your frame bag attaches to the top tube and it has a strap right here. If your top tube bag has a strap right on top of it, it's not going to fit, obviously. So a lot of these bags have the ability to move the strap forward or backward. Both the top tube bag and the frame bag that I discussed have that ability. The sleeping bag is another item that goes back to what I said of having two items half size as opposed to one. I found that it was better for me to have a smaller sleeping bag and more layers of stuff, like an extra blanket, than having a bigger sleeping bag, because the bulky sleeping bag was simply difficult to attach to my bicycle. It doesn't easily go into the frame bag, at least the one that I have. It can go into the seat bag, but it is actually quite large and bulky. I found for my bike, and my bike's an older one that has these cablings that are external. They actually show, as I'll show in the picture here. So it limits how much stuff I can put in this area, but I found that the handlebar area is a great spot for putting your sleeping bag. One thing that I will caution you of, here's another pro tip: make sure that whatever you put in your handlebar area doesn't impede your ability to shift. You're going to need room for your hands to move if you have brifter type shifters. So make sure that you have a few inches on either side of the sleeping bag or handlebar bag that you put up there. And now here's an area where the aero bars help you quite a bit. You can actually lash a lot more stuff both on top and below the aero bars. I haven't completely exhausted how I'm going to do this yet. I've found a smaller bag that I put on there. I'm not sure it's going to be worth it, but having options is nice with the aero bars. Shoes are another topic I'll probably revisit later. I have some road bike shoes that I like, not very expensive. They're Pearl Izumi Quests that I like quite a bit. They're very stiff, and that's a typical characteristic of road bike shoes. The downside of that is they're not easy to walk around in. So for my trip, I'm going to have the road shoes and also carry a set of lightweight sandals. In the future, if I do more bike packing, I think it would be better to have a different type of pedal system instead of the SPD SLs, to have the SPDs, because the shoes, instead of having external cleats that get in the way of your walking, they'll have internal cleats that don't. And a lot of people that do bike packing, from what I can tell, they use these types of shoes. One thing I didn't talk about at all is the cookware setup. My setup is pretty simple, just a simple Primus gas stove, and I use a smaller 4-ounce propane tank. Pro tip, I found that instead of having an 8-ounce one, which was very difficult to get to fit easily in my frame bag, the 4-ounce fit great. In fact, I could stick it inside the cup that I use for boiling water. For food, I'm just using some simple freeze-dried Mountain House packets. We also will possibly go out to eat. Since there are multiple of us on this trip, one of us can watch the bike while we purchase some food. If you're traveling alone on your bike packing trip, you might consider some way to secure your bicycle when you're not near it. The tent that I purchased seems pretty high quality. I'll show a link to it in the description. I don't have a whole lot to say about it at the moment because I haven't actually slept in it yet. I did set it up and tear it down just to make sure everything was there and I could figure it out. It is well made, does have great reviews online, and I will, in the future, as I go on my bike packing trip, I will update you. So in summary, what I've learned is it's important to do test rides before you go on your bike packing trip with your different configurations that you might try out to find one that works for you. What you think works on a stationary setup, you may find when you go on a ride, especially downhill or bumpy areas, that what you thought worked just doesn't. Something might get in the way of your knees as you're moving, your legs, whatever. Another thing I learned was it's better to have weight closer to the bottom bracket of the bicycle than anywhere else on the bike to not affect handling of the bike. If you're going to put stuff higher up on the bike, make it lighter weight stuff. Loose clothing tends to be a great fit for that. Freeze-dried food, etc. And finally, what I learned is that the bike that you currently have might be perfectly fine for bike packing. I will say at this point, from what I've learned, instead of getting a full-on touring bike, for what I want to do with bike packing, which is a lightweight rig setup, I would actually look for the bike that I currently have and outfit it the way I have it, rather than go for a full touring bike with a set of racks and panniers. The benefit of the frame bag system is it's much easier to maneuver around on buses and trains. If you're going through areas that have limited pathways, the panniers, they stick out quite a bit and they can get in the way of maneuverability. If you like this video, please go ahead and hit that like button. Hit subscribe and I'll let you know as soon as I have updated videos on different items that I like to use. I'll also, as soon as I go on my bike packing trip, I'm going to have a lot of videos about that trip and show you what I learned on this bike packing expedition.